Hello and welcome to another edition of Oshkosh Area Politics. I'm Paul Esslinger, former mayor of the city of Oshkosh, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ben Schneider, who is a former member of the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education. Today we're going to talk about the Governor Walker recall, Act 10, produced by Governor Walker, and the June 5th election. Actually, today we're taping, it is May 8th, and on June 5th, Governor Walker will have a candidate to be run against. He, of course, will be the Republican, and there will be a Democrat running. So everyone remember to vote on June 5th. So with that, Ben, if you want to get the show started, that'd be great.
Yeah, I just think it's important to reiterate to people that on June 5th, we'll have another governor's race, which we had one about a year and a half ago in November. So yeah, he'll have to defend his position on June 5th, and it's important that people understand that and get out and vote.
And one thing before you get started here, Ben, as two fiscal conservatives, first of all, we don't agree that this recall should even be happening because it was a decision made by the governor. And there was really, decisions have impacts and elections have impacts. But just so the viewers watching us understand, this nonsense is going to be costing the taxpayers, I think it's an estimated between this primary and the general election, or the recall election in June 5th, somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 to $18 million.
Yeah, it's going to cost a considerable amount of money. And I think it's somewhat unprecedented that someone gets recalled for something on how they voted or what they advocated, because really Governor Walker didn't vote for Act 10. He actually proposed it.
Right.
And of course the legislature, it got through the Assembly, it got through the Senate, and he signed it into law. And as a result, there are obviously many people that were not happy with that. And I simply, and I respect people's different opinions, but I keep going back to those that signed the recall petitions that did not, that were not in favor of Act 10. And for the record, for our viewers, Act 10 is obviously called the Budget Repair Bill, which reduced the collective bargaining rights of the state employees.
Because it repaired the budget.
Right, and it allowed local municipalities to help balance the budget without cuts in services as a result of the reduction in shared revenue and state aid. So I challenge those that agree with the recall and that disagree with Act 10. I like to know what their solution is. And it's really easy to oppose something. It's really easy to oppose Walker and say that he was too extreme, but he had to balance a $3.6 billion hole. And the ambiguity of let's look at everything and let's have a combination of things, it just doesn't get it done. You have to balance the budget. We have a constitution that requires us to balance the budget, and that's what he did. And arguably that's what he did, because there's some debate on if there's still some structural deficits, and in a $50+ billion biennium budget, it's a daunting task, but we will talk about some specifics with local school districts and municipalities on how the impact of Act 10.
Well, one last thing on this, Ben. It was, a year and a half ago, we had a gubernatorial election. And Governor Walker was running against Tom Barrett. Governor Walker won that election. And ironically, a year and a half later, it looks to be, from the polling that was done today, it looks to be Governor Walker will be running against Tom Barrett once again. So we're going to spend $15 to $18 million for Governor Walker to run against the same person that he just ran against a year and a half ago.
Yeah, actually, if you think about the cost savings of not having statewide recall elections, it's basically costing the local taxpayers in Oshkosh. If we would take the statewide cost, we could build a new school for that cost. And I know people disagree, but we're going to talk about some facts. There's been a lot of facts going on about how employees don't have any rights. Employees that work for the state or the counties or the local municipalities, they still enjoy more rights than those in the private sector. They still have their grievance and appeal rights, right to due process, protection from discrimination, protection during times of workforce reductions, ability to attain a permanent status similar to tenure. And that's right from the text of Act 10 legislature, from the state of Wisconsin documentation. So to suggest that employees are losing everything is a misnomer. And again, they will enjoy, the hardworking state and local employees, municipality workers will still enjoy job protections that you and I will never have as a member of the private sector.
Right.
And I do I complain about that? No, I'm just stating a fact. And I think really a lot of this, it's unfortunate because many people are angry about Act 10, and they're, in a sense, many people are angry that they have to pay 12% for their health insurance premiums and pay half of their retirement contribution. And frankly, I know a lot of people that are paying north of 30% for their health insurance premium. I know a lot of people that have no health insurance or are paying 100% of health insurance and pay 100% of their retirement contribution. So I know what people, and they're entitled to their opinion on Act 10, but again, if you disagree with Act 10, I'd like to know what your solution is. And ironically, I have reached out to no less than a half a dozen people personally, asking them to be on the show to talk about what their solution for Act 10 is, and we've had no takers. And I think it's unfortunate, but we have a lot of people that just want to vote no and say they don't support something, but they don't give us a solution.
Well, I can tell you what they support. They support more money in their pocket. That's what they're supporting. And you're right. I mean,
how do you attain that goal of more money in your pocket?
Well, you take it from the taxpayer.
You take it from someone else.
Right. You take it from someone else, you put it in your pocket, and then you go and spend it. And then your argument is, well, if you give me more money, then I can go out in the community and spend that money. So that creates more tax. I mean, that's the flawed philosophy that they have. But going back to your point of inviting people on the show, I've invited people from Facebook or meeting people face to face that have disagreements. And last show we had Tony Palmieri, kind of interviewed me, and we have some differing opinions. But it's amazing how people just will not take us up on our offer. And some of them, on Facebook, would call themselves conservatives. And they've signed the Governor Walker recall petition, and just you and I were talking today. Maybe we should do a show on some of the important people that were in elected office, or VIPs, if you will, or people that have held high positions, and discuss some of the people that have signed the Walker recall. And I think more importantly, talk about the people that call themselves conservatives that signed the Walker recall petitions. And I think the viewers would be very surprised at some of the names that were on that list.
Yeah, we'll talk to our we'll talk to our hardworking staff here at Oshkosh Area Politics,
right.
And we'll see, because we like to reach a consensus on the shows, and we'll see what they all think about our next topic. But we have had some of our researchers here do some
right.
investigative journalism,
right.
and our investigation, and they uncovered some very familiar names that signed the recall petition, which is really interesting because these individuals in years past that were in the past local elected officials called themselves conservatives and campaign on that promise and premise, and yet they signed the recall petitions.
So you're saying some of these people would have, like in their advertising while they were running, talked about how they wanted to keep taxes low and they were in it for the taxpayer and wanted to make sure that taxes didn't go up.
Yeah, and actually reached out to local political groups that are conservative and to seek their support and endorsement. And
are you claiming that these people were pandering to different groups, Ben? Is that what your claim is here?
I'm not going to claim anything. I'm going to let the evidence speak for itself.
Okay.
And but back to again, June 5th. That's the time to get out and vote, and vote for Governor Walker if you support the budget repair bill. And I guess if you vote against Governor Walker, you really support the days of double-digit tax increases, and that was followed with cuts in programs and services.
Right.
So really, the savings to local municipalities because of Act 10 is staggering. And the savings to local municipalities, let's just drill that down to local level. I know just in the Oshkosh Area School District, we turned a $1.5 million deficit into a $500,000 surplus. And there's a little asterisk that needs to go by the $500,000 surplus because the school board deliberately took their time in implementing the Act 10 flexibility. And what I mean by that is the school board changed from WEAC insurance to another carrier, which was simply a change in the name of the carrier, no change in benefits, and that change in itself saved $1.5 million. The school board waited half their fiscal year. They basically waited 6 months to implement that change. So in other words, they could have saved an extra $750,000. So,
Right.
so that $500,000 really should be close to $1.25 million. So, and I know it's documented what the county saved. It's documented what the city of Oshkosh saved, and it's documented what the state of Wisconsin collectively saved through all the municipalities. And keep in mind, when I say saved, that means that there was fewer tax increases or cuts to vital services. So in other words, Scott Walker inherited a $3.6 billion deficit. He had to balance the budget. You can balance the budget by raising taxes $3.6 billion, or cutting programs and services $3.6 billion, or a combination.
Why not just keep using the credit card? Doesn't that work, Ben? You're a financial advisor. Wouldn't you advise your clients to, it doesn't matter how much you make, it only matters how much you spend, just keep using that credit card and it all goes away because you get the Obama bucks maybe somewhere along the line, or someone will bail you out? Doesn't that work?
No.
What?
No, it doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
So, that's all I guess we could say is it just doesn't work, and actually that's just a slow and painful demise when you do that, because in fact one of the headlines today was the principal write-downs on some mortgages from Bank of America, and basically Bank of America is going to just take some principal write-downs, so the investors are going to have to suffer. So in other words, people bought homes that they couldn't afford, and they're going to essentially have a principal forgiveness, and people need to realize that someone's got to pay for that.
Yes.
So the people that have to pay for that are the investors in Bank of America that rely on their dividends and the share price appreciation to generate income, to generate retirement savings, capital appreciation, et cetera. So, there's no magical money trees that are dropping dollar bill foliage. It's really it's more of an honest and direct approach of governance.
And I think you will agree, especially as a financial advisor, this financial crisis that we've got ourselves in has produced interest rates, very, very low interest rates for homes, which is good for home buyers. But then the bad side of that is people that have money in money markets and whatever else are retired people that have money that they have put aside, and they need that money to get through the rest of their life, are now getting about 1% interest on money, where in the past it was much more. But because we use the credit card constantly and we've spent more than we take in, now the senior citizens kind of take it in the backside on this.
Right, and I know you're running for the assembly, and I think that's perhaps one of the reasons why you're going to have a lot of support and because you're a friend of the senior citizens. And the senior citizens have not been really talked about too much in this crisis, with their costs of their prescription drugs escalating and their healthcare dollars escalating, and their overall cost of their services. But their investment income is at a considerable low. And you look at some of the rates of return on these investments, it's just horrible. And that's a direct result of the crisis that we're in. People are not borrowing money, so the supply and demand factors, when people are not borrowing money, and granted there's the Fed, Bernanke, there's different factors that go into interest rates, but our seniors are just not making any money. And then we have a group of society that just says, let's keep raising taxes. Well, that doesn't work if you're on a fixed income, because we have a lot of seniors that just can't afford to pay those bills, and I think we shouldn't drive them out of their homes. And
a fixed income is just that. It's a fixed income. They're elderly. They can't go down and get a new job. But one other thing I heard today, Ben, that was very scary, and I heard it from a real estate agent, is the fact that foreclosures have been terrible in the past. It's now estimated, I heard this today, that foreclosures are going to increase by about 200%. There's going to be another glut of homes that are going to be foreclosed on in this market. So, what are the ramifications of that, Ben?
Well, obviously that's going to diminish
home values,
property values, which arguably should result in lower assessments, which would adversely impact tax collections. But since we're talking about seniors, One thing that Governor Walker did as a result of the biennium budget is he actually made a one-time investment into the Medicaid program, and I believe it was a cash infusion of approximately $1.2 billion. And I know we have a slide for that, so that is a substantial. That was a substantial contribution to strengthen a program that was,
Failing.
basically failing and on shaky ground. So that was really that should be noted, and I think that's one thing that many people that don't support Act 10 fail to realize is, a lot of people we don't hear from, and I don't want to say they're voiceless, but they just go about their business, and they just, they're in their senior years. They're hardworking men and women, but we don't have a lot of advocates, elected officials that are advocating for our seniors. They're pandering, but on one hand, they're pandering for these programs, but on the other hand, they're raising their taxes and pricing them out of their homes.
But Ben, the reality of that is when politicians pander and they make promises to everyone, that's how they get the votes. I mean, look at Barack Obama. Do you think Barack Obama is going to run on his record this year? He's going to pin Mitt Romney as a very wealthy individual that's out of touch with the middle class, and he's going to demonize anyone that he feels is against the middle class. And we keep talking about this middle class all the time, but I think that the middle class are people that are public employees, and the middle class are people that are in the private sector. And so, in fact, we have more people in the middle class that are in the private sector than in the public sector. So, I think this election is going to be very interesting on, how Barack Obama, if he chooses to, runs on his record. I just don't see that happening. I mean, do you see that happening at all?
Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously he's a very gifted communicator, and I think that a lot of these politicians can't run on the record, because if you look at the record, they would just get destroyed. So they have to continue to make empty promises. And actually, just like to take a turn for a second, we have a really good, we want to take a break right now. We have a really good commercial that we'd like to show regarding, Act 10. So we ask our viewers just to stay with us for a few minutes, and we'll be back right after this short break.
Here in Wisconsin, we're still facing economic challenges.
But unlike many other places, Wisconsin's reforms are working.
I'm a state employee, and while I'm paying some of my insurance and retirement costs now, I know I have better benefits than most. And working together, we save thousands of jobs, like mine.
We've kept the cost of government in check.
And property taxes saw their smallest increase in 15 years.
In fact, my property taxes actually went down.
Mine dropped by 4% with no reduction in services.
And school tax levies are down for the first time in 6 years.
How did we do all this?
One big reason is Wisconsin's reform plan.
Our taxpayers saved hundreds of millions.
And we ended the union bargaining abuses, putting the taxpayers back in control.
Those savings help Wisconsin avoid the massive tax hikes and layoffs other states have seen.
There's more to do, but the facts show.
The reforms are working.
Get the facts.
Get the facts.
Get the facts at itsworkingwisconsin.com.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that ad. One thing I want to talk about, Ben, in that ad, that commercial, the main point was taxes dropped. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I think it is a good thing.
Well, okay, now hang on.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so taxes dropped. You just got off the school board about a month ago, and while you were on the school board, Act 10 policies were implemented. Taxes dropped from the school board also. Now, and I think Dr. Palmieri, the last time we were talking to him, tried to make this correlation because less money is going to be coming in, that programs are going to be cut. Can you tell me, excuse me, can you tell me any children's programs that were cut because of Governor Walker's proposals, Act 10 proposals?
Yeah, what I can speak to is, as a board member, since Scott Walker was elected, we did not cut any programs as a result of Act 10, as a result of reduced state aid. I actually have thought about that. I've looked at the minutes. Unlike in years past, we didn't deliberately vote on something as a result of reduced state aid. We may have changed a program to be more efficient, to deliver something to be more effective, But I actually have some facts because we are a fact-based program here. And in 2008, the school district had a 2.2% tax increase, had a $13,000 budget cut. 2009 had a 5.5% tax increase, and we had to cut $5.5 million from the budget. That was the first year of the last Jim Doyle biennium budget, and that $5.5 million in cuts were in fact cuts to kids' programs and services, and implemented higher user fees on top of that 5.5% tax increase. The next year, the school board raised taxes 10.4%. In addition, rewarded the community with $1.7 million in cuts on children in kids' programs and delivery of service. The following year, as a result of Act 10, and in fact, I didn't catch this in time, so I apologize to our viewers, but that in 2011, we had a 2% tax decrease. If you don't believe me, pull out your November tax bill, and you will see a minus 2% on your property taxes.
December tax bill.
I'm sorry. Thank you. On the December property tax bill for tax year 2011. And in addition, the school district this year will have about a $500,000 surplus. And I say about because, of course, our fiscal year has not ended yet. Therefore, anticipated $500,000 surplus. Keep in mind, folks, the surplus should have been much greater had we made an insurance change much earlier. The school board dragged their feet and implemented an insurance change 6 months later than they could have. And if we would have made that insurance change earlier, that $500,000 surplus would have escalated to approximately $1.25 million. So, I just like people to see those slides and let the facts speak for themselves. Again, 5.5% tax increase, 10.4% tax increase, the previous biennium budget, and we're off to a 2% tax cut. So, and that's just Oshkosh area school district. I mean, we're talking other school districts had tremendous savings. Let's talk about class sizes as a result of the Act 10, and this is right from the WEAC fact sheet. The layoffs have actually dropped. Increased class sizes have dropped from previous years, and reduced extracurricular programs, has actually dropped as in previous years. So although we want to see that trend get better, it's certainly a lot better than it was in years previous. In addition, statewide, new hires outnumbered layoffs by approximately 1,800 teachers. So in other words, statewide, there was approximately a positive, it was actually positive job growth for the teaching field. So, and interesting to note, we're in a decline in enrollment state, so they actually, school districts actually added staff. So I believe that's indisputable. It's positive impact of Act 10. And for those that disagree, again, you must agree then with the 10% tax increases, the 5% tax increases, with the $5 million program cuts and the $1.7 million in program cuts. So that's some really good news that we just like to share. And I just don't think that someone should get recalled for solving a problem and generating something that is actually is less bad than it was previous. So I feel that's really interesting information, and I hope that people can understand that because it is factual and it's accurate.
Going back to those tax increases over the years, Ben, I don't remember what year it was, but I remember there was a 10-point something or other tax increase that one of your fellow board members at that time said, I'm sorry, I have to laugh when I say this, it's so ridiculous. This person said that a 10% tax increase was reasonable.
Right. Yeah.
Is that out of the park? I mean, is that someone hit that out of the park or what?
Yeah, that was an interesting comment because I actually, I believe that comment was made by a board member that I ran with back in 2002.
I think it was Tom McDermott, if I remember right.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention any names, but you are correct. And he did actually, in fact, say at one point, I want to say in 2006 or 07, the tax increase was approximately 9%, and he was quoted in the newspaper as saying that was reasonable. And of course, next election, I asked him if 9% is reasonable, what's unreasonable?
Right.
what's interesting is that individual ran as a conservative, fiscal conservative back in 2002. But one thing is when you get endorsed by the union and they start, knocking on doors and putting up yard signs for you and sending out flyers for you, that tends to change people. So really, this speaks for itself. I mean, tax increase after tax increase followed with budget cut after budget cut. And then all of a sudden, Scott Walker gets elected. He inherits a $3.6 billion deficit. He took a very honest look. There would be no increase in state aid because the state was broke. And he did cut state aid to local schools. But as a result of the cuts, as a result of the reduction in state aid, local still had a reduction in taxes. And actually, we have a surplus.
Yeah, well, I mean, the unfortunate truth to this whole scenario is we were, again, spending more money than we were bringing in. A new sheriff came into town and said, we can't do this anymore, and said, here's my plan, and went through with a plan. It's like if there's a private business that is going under, sometimes businesses, as you know, will hire a professional firm to come in, do audits, and make recommendations. I think the EAA had to go through this. Very nasty, very unfortunate. They were top heavy, or they had too many employees in certain areas. They hired someone to come in and do an analysis on the organization, and some people were fired. And that's very unfortunate. No one ever wants to see that happen. But that company's got to survive. If that company does not survive, then everyone's out of a job. And government's got to be the same way. We can no longer keep siphoning money from the taxpayers to fund salary and benefit increases when the people that are paying those are underemployed and unemployed.
Right, and really, if we really want to boil it down to one sentence, we can no longer continue to operate an unsustainable practice. And I think one of the reasons why your candidacy for state assembly, Assembly District 54, is catching so much steam and is generating so much excitement is because you advocate that philosophy that you cannot, we cannot continue to pretend we got to be adult-like in these dealing with these solutions. Our parents, our grandparents, they left us a pretty good America, pretty good Oshkosh, pretty good Wisconsin. And our generation, we're just borrowing money, and we're basically shackling our kids and our future grandkids with problems and debt. And that's just not I don't think it's a very good thing to do. And I know we've advocated for sustainable practices during our whole tenure. And I think the June 5th election, it really come down to, do we want to go back to the days of double-digit tax increases, program cuts, or do we want to have a better tomorrow for our kids and start to deal with problems head on, honestly, and let's stop with the empty promises. And that's what we hope this program was about. We hope we educated people, let people know what we're at. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, it'll be interesting to see what Tom Barrett comes up with solutions. He's supposed to come up with solutions. As we're taping this, I believe he's going to be the candidate running against Governor Walker, so I'd love to see what he comes up with. So until that time, until the next Oshkosh Area Politics, I thank you very much for watching. On behalf of myself, Paul Esslinger, and Ben Schneider, I hope you enjoyed the show. Good night, and God bless.